So I applied for a job at the former company that had laid me off. And it was a job that was very similar to the job that I had done before. And I thought that I was going to get this job because I had great scorecards um, for the 12 years that I worked at my previous company. And I knew that my manager was going to give me an excellent review to the hiring manager because he had already did that once and copied me on the email. And so I thought, I'm probably going to get this job. However, that's not what happened. And it didn't happen. And I'm not sure why it didn't happen. But in the end, the whole process really ticked me off, basically because the company ghosted me for 2 months. So this interview took place on Zoom. And I don't know if you're familiar with Zoom, but when you do a Zoom interview, you should make sure that your Zoom is working. So you can go on the web and you can make sure that your microphone is working and your video is working. And that's what I did. Anyway, the interview started. And when the interview started, it started off so weird. So I get on Zoom. I cannot hear the hiring manager speak. And I can see her face on the other end. And I could see her read her lips. And she's like, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" I was like, "No, I can't hear you." Apparently, she could hear me, but I couldn't hear her. Anyway, she called me on the phone. So she asked me if it was my Zoom, and I told her no. I tested my Zoom, and she was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure? Because I can hear you, but you can't hear me." And I was like, "Yes, I'm sure. I tested my Zoom." And she's like, "We might have to do this interview over the phone." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine." But she was very frazzled when she called me. Like she didn't know what to do. So she said, "Hold on, I'm going to go get an employee of mine and see if she can help me figure out what's going on." So anyway, she went and got one of her team, and her team came over and they started fooling around with her computer. And she called me back and she said, "Look, I'm going to try to jump on to another computer and see if the Zoom works on that computer." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." And so anyway, when she got on the other computer, the Zoom worked. I could hear her. So it was her fault. And she apologized and, um, she said that she'd been having trouble with her Zoom lately. And, she decided that since the team member, a member of her team was already on Zoom with her, that this person was going to join in for the interview. So I said, "Okay, that's fine." But anyway, at the start of the interview, she was completely frazzled. She was sort of all over the place. She was out of sorts, and we didn't quite start at the beginning. It seemed like she had to settle down and get a hold of herself, and she was asking me questions out of order. And I was doing the best I could, and I was smiling, and things seemed to be going good. But like the fourth question was, "Why do you think that you are qualified to do this job?" And I basically gave her a really good answer and said, basically, this job is the same thing that I did before. And I could tell that after I was done with answering that question, I had given a really good answer. Her and the member of her team were sort of speechless. So she was sort of taken back, and so was the teammate. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get this job. They know that I know that I deserve this job. So as the interview goes along, she's jumping around trying to explain what the job is, but then asking me questions at the same time. She still can't get over the way the interview started. But I'm doing the best I can. And then out of the blue, she asked me this really weird question. And the question had to do with documents. And in this job, um, you had to put together a document package and give it to QC. And she asked me, what would you do if your supervisor told you to put a document in the package uh, before you give it to QC? And I said, I would put the document in the package and give it to QC. And then she got really quiet. And so I didn't know what to do. Like, did she want, one of those star answers? Was I supposed to tell a story? I was like, what kind of story could I tell with this? So after like a minute of being quiet, she asked the same question again. And I told her the same thing. I said I would, put the document in the package and give it to QC. So we go, there was another minute of like silence. Like I was trying to I was looking at her and the other uh, person from her team, and her team members seemed to be like, so her team members seemed to be a little bit like on my side. Like she didn't know what the supervisor wanted either. I could tell from the look on her face. And finally, the hiring manager asked the question again. And this time I said, I would do what my supervisor told me to do and put the document in the package and give it to QC. And then she seemed to get like that was the right answer, which is basically not any different from the answer I gave her before. So it was weird. But that was like besides her being all over the place and asking me questions and asking me questions out of order, that was the weirdest thing about the interview, except for the way it started. So when the interview ended, I thought to myself, I'm probably going to get this job because they know that I deserve this job. It was very similar to the job I did before, and I could tell that the person on her team thought that I was a good fit for the job during the interview, and I could tell that the way I answered a lot of the questions really impressed her. So I was really excited after the job interview. So after the job interview, I waited one day and then I sent her a thank you email, thanking her for the interview and telling her if you need to find out anything more about me, don't hesitate to ask. And I was feeling really confident about this interview. And I waited a week and I still never heard anything back from her. So after a week, I sent her another email. And the email was basically like inquiring about the position again. If you need any more information, please don't hesitate to ask. Blah, 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 blah. And in the back of my head, though, I was starting to get a little bit worried because she never responded to my thank you email before. And I thought, well, if she were excited about me, maybe she would respond to that email, and she didn't do it. So I sent out that email, and after 2 weeks, I still never heard anything back from her. And I was really starting to get worried because I knew that they wanted to hire somebody in a hurry for this position, and I still never heard anything back. And I thought, well, I should have heard something by now because they're wanting to fill this position really quick. And, I'm kind of a perfect fit for this job. It's not that different from the job I did before. And in fact, she even said something like that in the interview. So I should have heard something back. So I sent out one last final email to her one more time inquiring about the position. I still never heard anything back. And I read on the web the most emails you should send somebody is 3. So after that, I quit sending her emails. Well, it took almost 2 months later to hear back that I didn't get the job. And what they said in the email was that they really liked me a lot, but they couldn't hire me at the time, but to continue to apply for jobs at the company. So I was really upset about it because I thought you should have at least kept up a dialogue with me and not let me out there hanging for all that long, because I told people that I was probably going to get this job and I kept putting things off a little bit. I was applying for other jobs, but not as heavily because I thought, oh, I'm going to get this job. and they just got my hopes up again. And this was a company that I had already worked for 12 years. I knew my manager was giving me excellent references inside the company. And I knew, I had great scorecards at this company. So it should have been a no-brainer. But the more I thought about it, I thought, this company lays off like twice a year. How many people are applying for this job, who've previously been laid off? I bet there's a lot of people applying for this job. That's why I think I didn't get the job. I think that they hired somebody that maybe was laid off 2 cycles before me or something. And, they hired them. But the fact is they should have kept up a dialogue with me and let me know and not let me um, ha- um, hang out there, not let me waiting without any dialogue whatsoever. I mean, they make you feel real chummy in these interviews and then they just stop contact. I didn't think that was right, especially for me being previously employed by them. Anyhow, if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. Thanks.